Alright guys, it's been a while since we looked at this, but let's see. As I recall last time, I said I was going to try to lengthen the top area here by adding this little piece, and that'd move the magwell forward. Is there anything else? I think that was pretty much I think I trimmed some more off that since last time. I think we're getting pretty close to fitting the strife to the Centurion, because I want to get that fitted before I get too carried away with this guy and before we really start fitting the barrel in place, just to minimize the amount of pieces moving since this guy's still flopping around in there. So, trying to regain my bearings. Let's size this guy up. Now, one concern I had looking at this before is adding the magwell here makes it look awful tall and kind of squatty this way. Obviously, it won't be as bad when the barrel's fitted, especially once we get, add some kind of a grip or foregrip area here. But I think, well, just going off of, take a strife, unmolested, well, only mildly modified strife for scale of kind of where the bottom of the mag well is in comparison to the trigger and stuff. Actually, we're still in pretty close relationship between just the way the grip and everything feels as far as I guess you'd call it user interface. So if you're accustomed to running a strife and you're used to having this hand here and for grabbing mags and stuff, if we change this orientation very much, that might kind of throw off the user, and that might be kind of a pain in the neck. So if we can keep that as close to stock as possible, so this being, say, the bottom of the trigger guard thing, and that's about 3/4 of an inch or so, and we do the same thing here, that's actually pretty close. I think I'll pull it up just a little bit more just for the proportions up here, because it's a pretty slim profile as far as the blaster shell in general is pretty trim, but it seems to get really fat right here. So I might see if I can shorten. This is about as short as it can get because I don't want to interfere with this body line here. But I might sacrifice some of the details through here to pull it up a little bit, and then we'll just have to kind of blend things together. And this up here, I don't know what's going to happen because we still need to address this whole area, and I need to figure out which pieces. Is it that guy? Yeah, the other side, I think. So we'll need to do something up in here to fill in that hole and to try to blend things together. So also, just kind of eyeballing it, I wanted to keep the Mega Magwell a hair bigger. If you remember, to do kind of a flared magwell kind of affair. But looking at it here, the width is probably about right. And, lining up, since we moved the strife magwell forward a little bit, I like what it did here and just gave us a little bit of room to work some kind of we'll have to build something for a mag release lever through there. So I like the back end, but the front end is almost like, what, 1/4 of an inch bigger than it needs to be. So I'm not sure, because we have some details right in here on the magwell itself. You can kind of see just the little details there. I think I'll just try to trim off a little bit of both sides instead of trying to make it all up on one side of the cut. I think I'll just whittle away both sides a little bit, and that'll hopefully pull the details together evenly. So we'll need to trim a little bit off of that. I like how actually, if we shorten up the magwell a little bit, part of the extending this little guy in here was to pull the jam door forward a little bit and make it a little bigger to help kind of line it up with the magwell itself. So if we bring the magwell back a little bit, I think that's going to bring it right in a nice happy medium, and that's going to look really nice. So moving on to the barrel. Let's see. Carved out quite a bit of that. So fit this guy. gonna have to use some kind of strange magic up in here, which I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do about that just yet. I figured we'll wait until we get a little more solid back here before we get too picky about what's going on here. We're just eyeballing it. I'm just casually looking down the barrel. Now, part of the issue of converting a Springer blaster to flywheels is that you have the height of the flywheel cage. Trying to fit the strife internals inside the Centurion without having a big, bump on top for the top flywheel. Removing the center line of the barrel of the strife lower within the center line of the barrel of the Centurion, which I had some second thoughts about, but I realized that barrel length, you're gonna have barrel drag or whatever, that's gonna be an issue. But with how much, I don't know if I can even show you that. Just that guy, and we'll stick this guy in here. See if I can show you kind of what's. This thing's too big. Anyway, what we have. Oh, will this work? There we go. So what you have is the strife barrel fits fairly low compared to the Centurion. It's not lined up right in the center of the big barrel, but yet you still have more room than if you fit just a regular elite barrel down inside, because the elite barrel fits inside the little opening, the throat of the exit side of the flywheel cage. So we have already, even though we're closer on the bottom than we are on the top, we still have more room from the bottom of the barrel to basically where the darts are exiting than we would if we were running a conventional barrel. So I feel a lot better about that. And especially considering that, we have a somewhat long barrel, but it's still shorter than, say, a Raider or Rampage or something like that. So I'm actually feeling a lot more positive about that. That was kind of a thought that floated around in the back of my head and said, man, are you gonna have to move the strife up higher and cut out the top of the Centurion? So right now we've been able to maintain this kind of like iron sight looking detail on the front of the Centurion, which I wanted to keep. I figure even if the cage itself is resting right close to that, there we go, then it should clear still. Then at least we're maintaining kind of the top, the smoothness of the overall silhouette. Because if we had a bump up here that stuck way out and was like, hey, there's a flywheel right there, that would kind of throw off the whole sleek nature of the Centurion shell, and that's what we want to maintain. That's why we're going to the extremes that we're going to here. So let's. Now, one issue that I knew I was going to come across was the fact that the strife is asymmetrical. The top side here is a lot taller than its opposite side, which makes it real tricky for integrations because you're trimming the insides, making clearance different both ways. So in order to make sure that the barrel is lined up, because I was kind of judging half for half when I was doing some of the initial fitting, and I realized that this little cutout here on the strife flywheel cage favors one side, and the cage itself favors one side just a little bit. The flywheels themselves are centered, I believe, but the seam on the cage is offset. Now it kind of threw me off, so I'm going to assume that, of course, the magwell itself we can assume is symmetrical. We know that the insides of the Centurion are going to be even. So if we basically hope that these lines here will center everybody else up, then we just make sure that we have an even gap along here, and it looks like we'll be able to fit the strife flywheel bump there just right inside of the shell of the Centurion, so that'll kind of help line us up there. And if we can line that up, then we can kind of trust everybody else, I think, that they're where they need to be. So somebody's not telling the truth. Just eyeball this real quick. Okay. I don't think I've finalized the fitment of these little spacer pieces. I think one side is a bit longer than the other, and it's kind of making the Centurion a little crooked. So let's address that first and foremost before we get too carried away with other things. So let's get the tape off here and see just what we're working with. My goal here is to not have a giant break between modding sessions from here on out the way I have, say, between now and the last time, and from the last time to the time before that. So I can kind of have an idea of where I'm actually at with all these things instead of, walking up to it and saying, oh geez, where the heck was I and what was I thinking, and oh boy. Alright, so, we got one here. Okay. Okay. My immediate concern was that I needed to put a screw in here to hold these pieces together so we could keep that alignment, but we lost that screw boss because, well, there's a flywheel cage in the middle. So that's going to complicate things just a little bit. So, okay, now given the circumstances, I think it'll be easier to shorten one side than it will be to lengthen the other. So right now, it seems that so let's take this guy and we'll just take after him with the file real quick. Okay, we're able to get it pretty well aligned, but there's still a gap here, so there's times where it feels like you're not actually removing any material, and that it takes forever, to go a little ways. But I still believe that is easier than saying, oh shoot, I took off too much, and then having to take more off the other side. So, I suppose the correct way of doing anything is a slow and arduous process. That means I hope we're doing the right thing, or doing it the right way. So, that looks pretty good. I think I'm comfortable enough with that I will roll with it. So, next question is, do I start to fit the strife before I fit these pieces in, or do I fit these pieces together and then try to fit the strife inside? So let's, for the heck of it, let's take the strife out, or what little bit is left of it. Wow. There's really no screws on the front end of this thing to hold it together. So what we might there's not many, really no screws left on this guy either. I was going to say what we could do is probably, after we've bonded the shell, the Centurion shell to the strife shell, is drill little holes in the Centurion shell that go through to the strife and rely on the strife holding together and holding the Centurion that way. But I have 1, 2 screws holding this shell together. So that's, wow. that's out. This is where we get creative, which, okay, well, we'll have, hopefully, well, we got at least one, hopefully we can work with there that we can use. Depending on how we do things with this front grip, we'll have at least one, maybe two there. I'm still planning on actually gluing the barrel here to the shell, and just you know, being part of the integration. So we'll have one. We'll have a couple. We can probably still make this work happily enough. We may have to get kind of creative and build something, but we'll wait and see how that goes. My original hope was that we could stick a few of these front pieces together, you know, to keep them aligned, and use those pieces, the alignment of those pieces, to ensure everything else is back here straight. But that's not going to happen, so we're just going to kind of go freestyle. So, I think just to keep things aligned and happy, I'll align these front pieces like I apparently had before, but just to hold them straight so we have a reference to go off of. You sit like that, thank you. So we'll line these two guys up nice. Okay, and just judging by the way this thing wants to fit together, I think we still have a little bit more to trim off of this one side. Let's work that guy down in nice and neat. So we hold those guys in straight. And okay, it's not off that bad. I think it's just the tape that's holding it together inside is getting kind of goofy. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and shave off just a little bit more on this guy. Put that dude in there. That seems a little happier. Okay, I'm a little bit more confident with the fit there. And let's see, get my straight edge. Gotta get all my tools back together after this little break. So, now I've got this little, there's a little trough, a little body line that runs through there, so we can kind of lock this guy in there and make sure everybody's all aligned, which is going to be nice when we stick all these together. Otherwise you have 1, 2, 3 independent pieces that are all wanting to move around, so this is going to be really handy when we start bonding these together. And you see, when you push those all in, this top line here lines up really good as long as you keep, you know, pressure on it. So we'll want to be careful and probably clamp that or tape it real good once we bond that until the DevCon dries. So that's looking pretty good. And that's looking pretty good. Okay. I think given the circumstances, I will go ahead and DevCon these pieces in place and probably stick this guy to this guy and just have that as a unit. Then any other last minute trimming we need to do, we can do kind of all at once, and there'll just be fewer pieces. Basically it'll be, instead of multiple pieces of shell with this guy inside, it'll be mostly, you know, a single shell and sticking that guy in. So I will get the DevCon out. Now, it's been a while since I've used this, so I'm hoping it's still good. If it's not, well, then you'll be able to see firsthand what it does when it's no longer a viable material. So, I'm pretty confident in the surface prep since we just sanded the heck out of it, and these all have a good amount of bite to them. And since we're not relying so much on a surface bond, since we'll be sanding it all off, then I'm going to focus just on getting the material down in the seam, in the joint between the materials. And I still think we're going to back it with another layer just to kind of help lock everybody together. There again, it depends on how, once this is all together, how much surface we'll have of this bonding to the Centurion to add support. So let's get to it. Looks good so far. Seems to be mixing appropriately. Alright, I think I'm just gonna load that down in there, and that pack some more along here. Having the tape as kind of a backer will help them hold the ooh, shoot. I want to get that out of there immediately, or else, like if it got down in that crack, that would have been a bear to dig out. So I probably should have taped that off. Well, that's gotta get back into the swing of things. And what the heck, we'll just do the whole guy right there. We'll drop that guy and kind of shimmy him in a little bit so we get some nice amount of material in the joint. Let it squish out a little bit. That means we got plenty in there. Now we get this guy, this little trough. Line them up all nice like that. And we'll just do the same for the other side. Now I'm just holding it to make sure that everything's straight, all the lines, body lines and such are aligned just right. Otherwise we'll be in a world of hurt after everything's cured. Now we just sit and hang out until it cures. Okay, that's cured nice. Just gonna go ahead and add another little bit to this bottom seam all the way across, just to kind of lock everybody in so we don't have any squish or play in that. Might add a little bit more in some of these little spots now that it's all cured. So just do that. Now I'm not too concerned about getting, over applying this on the outside, just because we're going to sand it all off anyway. And so it's going to be a bit messy just to make sure we get it all in the cracks, but this is all going to get blocked down nice and flat, so it's okay if it's just a tad messy on this side. Just going to go ahead and put a little bit, I have a little bit left over on my pad, so I'm going to go ahead and take some of the leftovers and try to get to the back of the joints a little bit.